The Spirit Returns 2.0 unveils a dual look at landing anniversary. Time was, a round-numbered anniversary was a straightforward occasion to celebrate, no longer in the case of our city's birth. Today, we can witness a more complex and richer commemoration. This month's round number is 170, the number of years from November 13th, 1851, the cold and rainy day when the so-called Denny Party famously landed at Alki Beach after traveling west from Illinois and sailing north from Portland to establish a new home. It's the date carved into the Birthplace of Seattle obelisk that has stood at Alki since 1905. Of course, complications arise from long-repeated references to that simplified tale. Number one, the 22 who landed on November 13th were not the first Euro-American settlers who arrived in what became known as Seattle. Number two, besides Denny's, other families were in the November 13th group, with the familiar names of Boren, Bell, Terry, and Lowe, calling into question the Denny Party designation. All except the Lowes later were rewarded with Seattle street names. Number three, the obelisk identified the married women in the group merely as "and wife." And number four, the 1851 landing does not denote Seattle's official birth. The city was incorporated in 1865, and after its charter was voided, was reincorporated in 1869. The most egregious error, however, lies in the story's neglect for the presence of Native Americans for thousands of years prior to the landing. The obelisk's birthplace reference thus reflected solely the perception of immigrants, many who forcefully dismissed and later eradicated the lives and culture that existed before their arrival. On November 13, 2000, the Southwest Seattle Historical Society began correcting the course, launching The Spirit Returns, an exhibit telling the Duwamish and settler stories at the organization's longhouse museum at Alki. 1 year later, it unveiled new plaques on the beach monument. The plaques recast the settlers as the Alki Landing Party, added the wives' names, and honored the generosity of city namesake Chief Seattle and his Duwamish and Suquamish tribes. This fall, the Historical Society and the Duwamish tribe have teamed to go further, mounting a thorough follow-up, The Spirit Returns 2.0, a Duwamish and settler story. This venture is hosted at two West Seattle sites, the Historical Society's 1904 Vintage Museum and the Duwamish Longhouse, which opened in 2009 on West Marginal Way. In conversations that shaped their displays, the organizations decided to focus on differing aspects, but also to weave a common thread, the early acts of friendship between the natives and settlers. The quest, as the Historical Society says, is to uncover a new way to think about Seattle history. In our first then photo, performing November 13th, 2000 at the opening of The Spirit Returns exhibit at the Alki-based Loghouse Museum of the Southwest Seattle Historical Society, is the Suquamish Traditional Dance Group. In the mid-19th century, the Duwamish and Suquamish tribes were led by Chief Seattle, for whom our city was named. In our second then photo, Roland Denny, a babe in arms when he was part of the Alki Landing Party on November 13, 1851, inspects the Birthplace of Seattle obelisk in 1938. The 1905 monument moved across Alki Avenue in 1926 and augmented by plaques unveiled by the Southwest Seattle Historical Society on November 13, 2001, still stands today, along the beach. Today, at the Duwamish Longhouse on West Marginal Way are, from left, Heidi Bohan, curator for the Duwamish portion of The Spirit Returns 2.0, Jolene Haas, executive director of Duwamish Tribal Services and daughter of Cecile Hansen, tribal chair, and from the Southwest Seattle Historical Society, Kathy Blackwell, board president, Maggie Case, curator of the Historical Society portion of The Spirit Returns 2.0, and Michael King, executive director. Haas holds a cedar bark hat worn by Chief Seattle that is part of the Duwamish display. The dual exhibit opened October 9th. For more information, visit loghousemuseum.org and duwamishtribe.org.